The construction sector is a big employer of labor. Although there is still a high demand for infrastructure development, issues of funding abound as the sector finds ways to cut costs as oil prices remain volatile. The former president of the Nigeria Institute of Building, Chuk Sumefe, talks to business correspondent Harriet Agbeyi in this interview.
Looking at the economic situation as it is, I'm talking about the international economic issues that we've seen, falling oil prices, of course, which has affected us on the home soil. A lot of sectors have actually been affected, but one wonders if the construction or building sector has also been affected.
Well, the Nigerian economy generally responds slowly to changes of its nature as compared to the other climes. And the reason is basically because whatever goes up in Nigeria, it's really difficult for it to come down. The recent reduction in the price of oil and the cost of fuel in Nigeria generally has not really been felt, along the line in Nigerian construction industry. Then the reason is because the change is very significant. That's number one. Number two, the areas where they could have affected the industry, we're talking of haulage, for instance, production of materials and things like that. The majority of materials that are used in the industry, which the major ones are locally made. The major one that could have been affected easily is the finishing materials. And because it's just less than 2 months this thing happened, we're hoping that maybe in the next couple of months, they'll be changing those materials that are imported outside the country from the industry.
It's not even up to a month since the change, anyway.
But the way it is now, there's no noticeable difference in terms of cost of these materials at the moment. But I want to believe that in the next couple of months, if this price subsists, they will definitely have a reduction, but not to the same, because the majority of the materials in the industry are local. The ones we're talking about are luxury materials like the finishing materials, tiles that are mainly imported. But largely, I don't want to believe that there will be any significant impact in the sector, the way it is.
Okay, so now you're talking about the reduction in pump price.
Yes.
So let's talk, because what I actually was referring to was international, global oil prices. But let's look at how, the devaluation of the naira, has been under pressure in the last couple of months, and the central bank has actively tried to, boost the naira. But how much has that also affected the sector?
Like I said, the impact of the devaluation of naira in itself is going to have effect on the materials that are important to the country. But what that means is that if you buy something for 1 naira before, because of the value of the naira now compared to the international currencies, it's going to be higher now, the way it is. But like I said again, that impact has not been felt because, you see, a lot of things came in last year into the country. And we're expecting that by the time they are exhausted, and that we are bringing new set of materials to the country, then that part can be seen. But the way it is now, there's no more difference. Yeah,
because you see, some people actually feel that, building materials are expected to be cheaper since oil prices are falling.
Definitely, but like I said again, the critical materials in building are locally manufactured. Yes, I expect that maybe in terms of power for manufacturing materials, this is cheaper, but again, what is the percentage reduction in price? That's why I say somehow the impact will not be felt really in the industry because it is very, very insignificant compared to the volume of materials that we are talking about in the industry.
Okay, now, so for those finishing products and the materials, rather, that you talked about, why can't we, begin to see how those can also be locally made?
I think we are in a transition, actually, in the industry. Because majority of materials are locally produced, but they are not adequate. I'll give you an example of tiles, for instance. Tiles are imported, but you see how local tiles that are being made, but they're not adequate to meet the demands of the industry. So I think, like I've been advocating for a long time now, if government can deliberately intervene in the industry, they have done so in many other sectors of the economy, empowering local entrepreneurs in the industry, local stakeholders, to build up capacity and capability. I think that will impact on the industry in terms of these materials. Because instead of importing this material, the volume of money we are taking out of this country to bring these materials can set up so many cottage industry in this country that can create opportunity for employment and generate a lot of income, within the local economy.
Now, what with regards to encouraging skills development, we already know that there's some, people, some in the construction sector that actually have this skill.
Yes.
And so, yes, funding is a challenge. Of course, we know that power is also a challenge.
Yes.
But haven't there been, funds or interventions to help put the sector on a stronger footing?
Yeah, the only intervention we've had recently is this national mortgage refinancing company that was set up by the government. That has been the intervention. In other spheres, what happens is that the cost of fund to run the industry is a major problem. You see, the industry is based on long-term funding, and most of these Nigerian banks are not solid enough to provide funding for this kind of projects. For instance, I'll give you a typical example, like housing projects. You take an example, maybe 1,000 housing units, for instance. You're looking close to about 10 billion. And give or take, if you run this project very, very well, it will take about 3-4 years to complete. So banks are not able to give out that kind of money for such projects that require such kind of fund. Instead, what they have is short-term funds. So the major critical problem in the industry is funding.
So why don't industry players actually look at going the route of the Nigerian capital market, for instance, to try to get these funds? Because going to the Nigerian Stock Exchange, of course, you get long-term funds.
Yeah, we have advocated in the past about this construction bank, a major bank that can take care of this responsibility. Basically, pivoted to run the industry. But again, government has not given us that necessary backing to do that, because there's no way we are going to raise 25 billion. As at the time we are asking for this, government say you have to play like other players in the banking industry. Go raise 25 billion. And we couldn't do that. But I think that just like what they have now, they have an infrastructural bank in Nigeria now. I think government can go a step further as a major intervention in the industry, because the major problem in the industry is just funding.
So I will still ask again,
Yes.
Why not take the option of going to the Nigerian Stock Exchange to raise funds?
I think we did that, and it was not encouraged. We didn't get a lot of response. Because you see, a lot of people don't understand how this industry works. It's not like cash and carry. Are you getting me? People expect that maybe you are manufacturing this thing, you sell. It doesn't work that way. The industry is so volatile and highly unpredictable. So a lot of people look at that unpredictability as a basis for judging the industry. A typical example is an housing estate, for instance. If I have a housing estate package to deliver, you'll be surprised that immediately you put something on the ground, it can be oversubscribed. But a lot of people are not ready to do it. They expect, okay, what if this is not subscribed to? What happens? So people look at the negative aspects of the unpredictability as a base to judge the industry. So most people are not ready to put in money there. Like we said, the stock market issue that we tried that time under the umbrella of Association of Professional Bodies of Nigeria, it couldn't work because
This was how long ago?
Like about 5 years now. It couldn't work because discussion was very, very low. So it couldn't take off. But I think that at this level, government must just lead in ensuring that this thing is established. Because at the end of the day, it's going to impact on the economy generally. It's going to enhance and it's going to ensure that the industry contributes to the national economy in a more critical way. Because the way it is, I think that the construction sector is not at its best in terms of a contribution to national development.
But now, talking about that, there's this forecast from global construction perspective that infrastructure is the hottest sector to be in, and that it's set to grow in emerging markets by a staggering 128% between 2009 and 2020. But how is Nigeria keying into this?
Yeah, when they talk about being the hottest, what that means is that just like the housing sector in Nigeria, a lot of people are rushed to come to Nigeria because the return on investment in housing is very, very high. So a lot of people coming to Nigeria, give or take, there's no way you are going to lose money in the housing sector. Instead, what you get is appreciation of your fund in very unexpected ratios. So infrastructure on its own, because in Nigeria, what you really need now is infrastructure. And the major focus that contributes a lot of cost to the housing sector is civil infrastructure. So, like what is going on now all over the country, government is focusing on infrastructure and bringing the private developers, private people to get involved in this infrastructure. But again, the cost of infrastructure on its own is something that most people cannot even look at it because it's enormous to find. I'll give you a typical example. In the housing estate, for instance, infrastructure is 40% of the cost of those houses. In a typical house, for instance, you have a house of about 10 million naira worth. The cost of providing infrastructure in that locality for that particular unit of a house is about 4 million. So at the end of the day, infrastructure becomes a critical mass that you cannot afford to look elsewhere. You just have to, and that's why people are saying, if government can provide infrastructure and provide land, then you can dictate the cost of these houses.
So it still boils down to the fact that Nigeria isn't really keen into this hot sector as much as it should.
We are right to key into it, but the fund is not there. You need fund to key into these things, And foreigners will not come to take the lead because it's a sector that's highly unpredictable, because of government regulation and things like that. A lot of people are scared. Our land titles are not perfect yet. These are the issues that affect foreign participation on most of these things. But despite that, I can tell you that a lot of people are still coming in.
We're still having heavy foreign participation.
Nigerian housing sector, construction sector is one of the hottest as far as I'm concerned. In Africa, globally, people know that you come in here and you can be sure that you can make a return on investment very, very fast.
Well, let's talk about you. I know you already mentioned it, the Nigeria mortgage finance. Yes, the government, has continued to look for ways to improve, on housing delivery in the country. But what cost-effective system do you think can be adopted to achieve this, bearing in mind the high cost of fund?
Yeah, like I've said, I think government needs to look inward. Let us use what we have to achieve what you are looking for. Nigerian land mass is so big. Why can't government give our land at zero cost to developers? Because these are the issues that makes the cost of the land very expensive.
No, but apart from land, we also need materials to build.
No, if you take away cost of fund and land, you can do this house at a very, very rock bottom prices. These two things are the major issues in housing. And once they're not taken care of, there's no way an investor will come into the country, provide infrastructure, buy land, and build these houses and sell at affordable prices. It's not possible. These are the issues that have been impinging on the industry for a very long time.
You've focused seemingly on the challenges, but I'm sure that there definitely have been some advantages in the sector.
No, what has happened recently through the government housing policy is some of the things I've just mentioned now. Government is now focusing on how to provide these lands, make accessibility to land very easy for people. And even the issue of funds too, the Federal Mortgage Bank is trying its best to provide estate loans for development. But the question is, are they adequate? I mean, there are efforts that are being made, obviously, in this sector to ameliorate the problems in the industry. But the challenge is that they are not adequate. It's like a drop in the ocean. And the recent issue of this mortgage refinancing company that just was set up, I think that was a very good one. And like I said, Nigerians are looking up to that particular initiative. And once the government can get it right, actually a lot of people will key into it.
So going forward, in the days ahead, in the short to medium term, I like to look at the short to medium term. But from, this kind of industry, it should be maybe more to medium to long term that we should be looking at. What should we begin to expect from the industry, based on all what you've talked about, the disadvantages, the challenges, and also the good that has been seen in the industry as well? What should we begin to expect from such a hot industry?
For me, on the short term, I think we have to reverse our rule. Let government deliberately. I've said this. There's nowhere in the world where you throw your market open. You must have concessions for your local people to give an advantage. If you throw open every sector in the economy in this country to the global world, I'm sure we won't be able to take a place. But there must be protection policy for the local stakeholders in this industry. Because this industry is such that you grow in skill, in knowledge, as you go along. These people that are coming here didn't get to where they are in the day. They have gone through a lot of training, and by doing this thing on a constant basis, they are better. I mean, in Singapore, for instance, Singapore do multi-story buildings. The knowledge they have is not more than what you have here. But the thing that practice makes perfect, they do this thing over time. And today, they are exporting even this local expertise to other countries. So for me, I think that for me is what I expect government to start focusing on. We must empower our local people so that this country can grow. No person can come out here and develop this country for us except us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Omefe, for speaking with us on Business Incorporated.
Thank you, too.
On this note, we've come to a close on the program. If you've got comments and questions, do send your mails to businessincorporated@channelstv.com. You can also reach me on Twitter. Thank you for watching. I am Bolaji Akinwale. See you next time.